All right, welcome everyone. My name is Will Moss. I am the CEO of HBCU Connect, and this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you're logged in from, we are presenting Truist. I'm super excited about this event for a variety of reasons, but most of all, excited for you all to take advantage of this opportunity to connect with an awesome company that has awesome opportunities. We're going to learn more. We're going to meet some of the team. You're going to have the opportunity to ask questions. Please leverage the chat. Introduce yourself in the chat. If you want to represent your HBCU, drop your HBCU in the chat. If you're your Black Greek letter organization, you want to represent that. But most of all, if you want to network, drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat, and let's make this a live and interactive event. So after the speakers introduce themselves, you can also ask questions in the chat directly to those speakers, because maybe they said something that they do at Truist that piqued your interest and you want to ask a follow-up question. That is what they're here for, to engage with you, to answer your questions in the chat, and to make this a live and interactive event and a huge success. So let me introduce myself. Again, my name is Will Monson, the CEO of HBCU Connect. This is one of many virtual events that we've hosted, but it's our first event with Truist. However, we've had a partnership for a while now with Truist, where they have been connecting with us to recruit online on hbcuconnect.com. But a lot of the success we have connecting candidates with companies is through our virtual event platforms. What I always like to say, when you come to one of our events, you are in the right place at the right time. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this is not just like a career fair where you go and you stand in line at a booth, you have your resume in hand, you hand your resume to someone, you have a brief conversation, and maybe you don't hear from them again. This is an opportunity where Truist is here to connect specifically with you all, to learn about, for you to learn about their opportunities, for you to ask questions, and then for you to connect and take advantage of the opportunities that they have available. When we have these events, folks get hired from these events. Folks land interviews and get hired. And then we like to create, those success stories and share those success stories out so that people can take advantage of these events in the future. So I'm super excited to have you all here. I'm super excited to host Truist. So we thank all of you again for jumping on time and taking advantage of this opportunity with us today. So another thing I like to do briefly at all of our events is go over the agenda so I can set expectations. So the first thing we're going to do is give a brief keynote address, and that is going to be from my classmate, Mr. Mike Moore, who's now at Truist. So I'm going to introduce Mike Moore. He's going to do our keynote. We may have a little bit of dialogue at the end of that keynote. Maybe we'll take some questions if we have time. Then we're going to have a brief conversation about technology and innovation program at Truist, navigating the career landscape, technology, digital, and marketing. Then we're going to have a panel discussion. And then I'm going to start to invite or take your questions in the chat to pose those questions to our panelists so that we can make this a really live, interactive, and engaging event. Also, I'm going to encourage you to ask questions as we go. And then I'm going to ask the Truist folks to answer some of those questions in the chat as we go as well, because sometimes when we get to that live Q&A at the end, we don't have time to answer all of the questions. So go ahead and ask those questions as they come up, and I'll ask that the Truist folks that are here supporting the event, if you could help us answer some of those questions for our candidates. All right, so now what I want to do briefly is I want to share with you who's going to be presenting, who's going to be speaking, and then we'll go one by one, starting with our keynote, where they will have the opportunity to present a little bit more about themselves, their path, their journey, and their story, and what they do at Truist. But briefly, we'll have Mike Moore, who's going to be our keynote, Senior Vice President, Head of Technical Services, Office of the CTO. Then we're also going to have Henrietta Jumo Apia, so Senior Vice President, Career Programs Lead, followed by Steve Ferrio, who's the Senior Vice President, Talent Acquisition Manager. Also, I'm going to introduce Deborah Bernard, Senior Vice President, Brand Digital Group Senior Manager, as a part of being one of our panelists in our panel discussion. April Jackson, who is a Vice President and Release Train Engineer, followed by Oliver Boris, who is a Vice President and a Software Engineer. So we've got a great mix of different levels and different responsibilities and roles there within Truist, and they are here for your benefit to share these great opportunities. So this is who you're going to hear from. But without further ado, let's talk to our keynote speaker, who is Michael Moore, my classmate, who's also the Senior Vice President, Head of Technical Services, Office of the CTO. But before, Michael, before you jump into your keynote, I gotta tell my story, right? Because the last time I talked to Michael, some years ago, probably before he was at Truist, I was reaching out to him to invite him to a similar event just like this. Of course, I knew he was my classmate, computer science class of 1995. But the special story I share with Michael is that at graduation, you remember those moments. Graduation from college is one of those moments you always remember. And Michael, out of everybody that was there at graduation, the computer science department, we graduated in groups by departments. Out of everyone that was there, I remember being with Michael at graduation as we were right next to each other in line because our last names start with MO. So Michael, I'm super proud of you, brother. I'm happy and excited to hear from you, what you're doing there at Truist. But this was a pleasant coincidence for me because I didn't realize that you were going to be our keynote before the dry run. So welcome to our event, Michael. I'm super excited to hear from you, and I'll let you take it from there and share your experience.
Thank you. I snuck up on you. It's good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. It's been a minute. I won't actually say out loud how many years it's been, but it's been a few. And you all can read, so I'm not going to sit here and read this stuff to you. I'll just tell you that my career has taken many turns over the years, but just today, and I say today because things are constantly changing, especially in an environment where you're doing mergers and reinventing your brand and developing as a new bank. Today, I currently direct a few teams. One is solution architecture. Another one is the enterprise architecture governance, and what we call our architecture working group. And I also provide, believe it or not, strategy input for our patent strategy at the bank. I'm sure some of you would be, patents? What are you doing patents at banks? You'd be surprised. For instance, Bank of America is the #1 patent holder in the country as far as financial institution is concerned. And the rest of us are quickly approaching and trying to catch up. But I say that to say, this is not your mom and dad or your grandparents' bank, right? Banks are now becoming technology organizations that happen to provide financial services. Everything from blockchain to the most advanced engineering capabilities to our approach to oh my gosh, my brain is blanking out right now. But our online and digital banking platforms, our analytics, those things look a whole lot like non-banks that are doing high-end engineering and compute activities, right? And so, the days of, you go in, drop off your deposit and go home, or you go in to apply for a mortgage, that's the bank of old, right? And now it's about cross sales. It's about identifying clients and helping provide additional services. It's about understanding the nature of our customer and being able to provide a user experience that is adaptive, that is transformative, and that's responsive, and do it all faster, better, quicker, slicker, and more consistently than the competition. Right. So just like anything else, we're constantly working, trying to fine tune our services, our capabilities, and so on. So anyway, I'll zip through this pretty quick. As Will said, I did graduate from Hampton, an undergraduate degree in computer science. I eventually got an MBA and I finished law school about a year ago. I won't even go into why I went to law school, but in short, I promised my grandmother I would. And if we have time, I'll tell you a story about who my grandmother was. But in the meantime, let's move on. We can talk about that other stuff some other time. So let's talk about Truist and who we are. For those that don't know, Truist used to be BB&T and SunTrust proper until we decided to endeavor on a merger of equals, and we became Truist. Now, what is unique about Truist, not to mention, we went from, I don't even know what number we were but in the merger, we became the 6th largest bank in the country. In a merger that is the largest of its kind in the last 35 to 40 years. And we felt every inch of that merger. It took at least 2 years to push through the execution, but it's been a fantastic exercise in giving us an opportunity to really understand not only what our capabilities are, but really understand our customer better. And funny thing about mergers is you learn a lot, but very rarely do you have the opportunity to take what you learned and apply it again, because most folks don't do these kind of mergers but once in a lifetime. So unless you work at a firm that does mergers for a living, some of it is throwaway knowledge, but it's still useful nonetheless, because it helps you certainly dig a lot deeper into your portfolios and your areas of focus and interest. But back to Truist and what our purpose is. Our purpose is to build better lives in communities. People say that, right? They always want to have a spin on what they think the community impact is, because it looks good, makes great commercials. But I can promise you there's a real commitment to making lives better, building better lives, and inspiring those lives in communities. We have a significant philanthropic activity that goes on in our bank and a separate foundation that is pushing millions of dollars into small business and innovation. We've got an innovation technology center that is on par with anything you've heard of at Google. For a bank, that's pretty impressive. It's about 100,000 square foot facility, holds about 500 people. It has an indoor park that overlooks the city of Charlotte. And it is the most impressive cooperative learning environment I've seen in a very long time. I work out of that space, and it is significantly inspirational. Side note, there's also a 50-foot mural of my grandmother there, and so I feel connected to the space. And it's an important space because I think it inspires both oh, sorry, Siri's trying to be nosy. I gotta be careful about that. It inspires a new generation of developers, of innovators, of technologists. But it also, I think, indicates to those who are watching Truist that we are serious about our business of bringing technology to the financial industry. We're not just talking about it. When you post up 100,000 square foot facility, all brand new, with space for that kind of innovation and corporate partnerships, and you splash the way we did, it lets everyone who is in our atmosphere know that we're here to be real serious about bringing that innovation and technology to the financial industry. So it's a pretty exciting time. But when you do that, when you bring that kind of technology, when you bring that kind of energy, you also have to be careful about how you support teammates and how you present yourself to the world, right? So next slide, Will, if you don't mind. And what that means is, what are your missions and your values? Now, I know a lot of people who in their career search don't just hunt for, compensation. And is it a nice fluffy office with great chairs and a good view of the city? They want to know if the organization that they're working for shares some common values, right? Has a mission that is consistent with where they want to spend their time working and leveraging their talents, right? And so this was what we launched before we launched anything else. Excuse me. We developed our mission and our values, right? And there are 3 areas where that really is applied, right? It's for our clients, right? Particularly clients first, right? We want to provide a distinctive environment. We want that client experience to not only be authentic and real, but be palatable, something they can get their hands on and feel like they had an experience with not just walk into the branch, and meet a smartly dressed wealth advisor who can tell them how to save money or spend money or gain wealth. But But is that experience one that makes them want to come back and explore other services and capabilities? Are they going to tell their friend how fantastic a relationship they have with their banker or with their bank? Are they going to be able to then tie in with our other partnerships and really explore our capabilities and grow along with us, right? And so to do that, the experience has to be distinctive. It has to be consistent, it has to be successful, and it has to be the kind of experience that welcomes users of all ages and types. We can't target, right? So imagine trying to create innovation that both your grandmother, grandfather, and your teenagers will all want to experience. I can't even get all my kids to want to eat the same thing at dinner, right? So you can imagine how challenging that is, but we're up for that. And that's what we're really focused on. But then also our teammates, right? No organization is successful without a team that is motivated, that is excited, and that is plugged into the mission and the objectives of the organization. I don't care how much money you put on the table. I don't care how great the letterhead is and how wonderful your business cards look when you hand them out to your friends. If you don't work for a company that you're proud to work for, you will not produce. You will not go the extra mile, and you certainly will not drive the kind of performance and results that we've grown accustomed to and that we want to continue to grow. And so to do that, folks have to feel included. They have to feel like there's value. They have to feel like they have an opportunity to not only participate, but contribute. I used to tell when I was doing work with youth groups around sports, no kid wants to go home with the clean uniform. They don't. They want to get dirty like everybody else. They want to be a part of the W. And they want to put in whatever work they have to put in to be a part of the win. And so to do that, you've got to include and energize people in your organizations. You have to make them feel a part of the overall mission and the specific role and function of the organization that they're a part of. That is part of our mission and our value, to create that kind of environment where people can grow and learn and be a part of the mission and be plugged in. And then finally, our stakeholders. And obviously with any organization, you've got stockholders, you've got folks that have invested in your success. And what they're investing in is long-term growth and the evolution of the organization in the direction that you say you're going to go in, right? And you don't just do that blindly pushing through, but you do it with a sensitivity and a consideration for your clients and your teammates. And then finally, how you do all these things is by being trustworthy, by presenting care and concern for everyone involved, by making everyone feel like they're part of the larger team. And you've seen organizations where the business is on one side of the fence and the technology group is on the other, and they're constantly arm wrestling for who has control, who drives the mission. One thing I will say, and I say this to technology people all the time, while we are a bank and we are in effect a technology company that is seeking to innovate in financial services, we don't make widgets, right? And so as important as engineering and technology is, our job is to enable the business, right? We don't build widgets to go do something amazing out in the open field, right? That's a different kind of engineering company. Our job is enabling business. And so if what we're working on doesn't further the mission and values of the organization that we're a part of, we're really not working on anything. It could feel great. You could be real excited about it, but it's useless to the organization if it's not plugged into our mission and values for the larger view. Now, pretty much I'm done with my spiel. I could go on, Will knows, I could talk you all till you all fall asleep. But I'd love, before I run, I'd love to answer any questions you have about my role, about the organization, about sort of the history of the merger, anything else you might have questions before I disappear.
I got a few for you.
Sure.
So I love to get context, right? So I always imagine if I was the candidate, right? I went to an HBCU, I see yourself, you went to an HBCU, I can identify with you. So I always like to get a little bit of background and context on the speaker, right? So where are you from originally?
I'm from originally from Jersey, Dogtown Projects, East Orange, New Jersey.
There you go. There you go. Love it. So can you give us the path? How did you end up working at Truist? Like, how did you get your foot in the door?
See, I left Hampton. I went to work for the Department of Defense as a Unix engineer, working in a nondescript building buried in somebody's basement, doing stuff that we still can't talk about. And I love that job. I got to travel around the world and really meet some amazing people and do some really fun things. I eventually left Department of Defense, worked for Pepsi Cola. I was lead engineer for the global engineering department, responsible for, storage, data center operations, support, that kind of thing. And then I became an architect and went to the banking side of the house here at Wachovia in Charlotte. And then I sort of banged at being an architect for about, 10 years or so, maybe a little bit. And then eventually I became manager and then director of architecture here at the bank.
There it is.
And then along the way, I went back to school, got an MBA, and then eventually went to law school.
So let's get a little bit more context, okay? This is more about what you currently do, your role and responsibility. So
right.
What products or services is your team responsible for? And then what type of talent does your team typically look for?
I'm sorry, hold on.
No worries, no worries.
What was that, baby? I'm on camera. I need your keys. You need my keys. They're downstairs, sweetheart. Where? In the kitchen. Can you close the door now?
Michael's not only important at Truist, but in the household as well.
Right, that's my 6-year-old. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries.
I'm sorry. So the question was, what kind of, all right, so these,
what are you all responsible for? And then who do you look to hire, your team?
Right. I'm responsible for all infrastructure design, policy, procedure around application and platform delivery. If you think of it this way, the line of business determines that they want to deploy an application. They come to my group to provide shape and form for what kind of infrastructure and what that design will look like and how we will deploy it based on everything from tiering standards to availability to, functionality and those things that are governed by, the FDIC and policies that, we adhere to as a financial institution. We then design, price, document, authenticate, and then we drive the build teams to deliver those platforms, right? And we do that on a portfolio level. So that's everything from enterprise data office to wholesale banking to residential, to commercial, to consumer technologies. Every branch of the organization comes through our group to get their infrastructure designs, deployment plans, price estimation, and delivery. And then once we develop those plans and costing, then we more or less facilitate the execution of that project with very skilled, project managers, Scrum Masters, those kind of folks to deliver those platforms and applications for the lines of business. That's my day job. My night job, I also provide, I'm the unofficial consigliere for the CTO. I also am also part of the patent strategy group that helped develop our patent strategy. I also recruited our intellectual property and patent team, and I work with them to help ferret out patent and innovation candidates throughout the bank for patent applications and consideration.
So this may be my favorite question that I'll likely ask to all of our panelists and presenters. And that is, what is it that you like most about working at Truist?
I have to say, I've been given, and I don't know if it's the experience of everyone, but I've given the opportunity to, I won't say do what I want to do, but one of the things, and I'll speak a little bit about being a part of an underrepresented group in technology. One of the things we learned, for those of us that have been in the game for a minute, is we learn how to build a level of influence and I'll just say a level of influence without necessarily being granted organizational authority to do so, right? We either rely on our skills, our personalities, our ability to connect with people, our networks. However we figure it out, we find ways to move people, move mountains, move things on the chessboard to accomplish and deliver without necessarily the title or without necessarily the organizational power to do that, right? And so the bank has allowed me, and I don't know if they even did it consciously or they weren't looking, so I did it and no one said anything. But I've been able to identify problems or issues or weak points or things that I thought we needed to go after, things we needed to address, and work on them and deliver them, and have them become the standard, right? Or have them become our new way of doing things. And I didn't ask anybody. I just did it. And so what I will say is it's been a wonderful, I think, landscape if you have the ability to identify opportunities and issues, to identify, execute, deliver, and establish, right, a new way, without a whole lot of pushback, right? And I don't know if they don't push back because I'm loud, or they don't push back because sometimes it's a good idea, but I've had a lot of freedom to do that, right? And that's been, for me, very rewarding. For those of us who, are always looking for what separates one organization or one place from another, it's often not about compensation or those kind of things. It's about the freedom to be authentic and go get it, right? And then be able to then teach and share and grow, right? And for me, that's everything. If I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be here. I'd be somewhere else.
So I'll let that be the final word because I know you got to run. But let me thank you again, Michael, for being our keynote. It's a pleasure to see you again as well.
Absolutely.
It's and congratulations, and thanks to the Truist team, all of you for being here, and those that brought my classmate to participate. So I really appreciate that. So to our candidates, go ahead.
I'll pop up my LinkedIn profile in the chat before I go.
Perfect. So to our candidates, like I said, you're in the right place at the right time. Michael's going to drop his LinkedIn profile in case you have follow-up questions, but just a really great individual that I for sure can vouch for. So thanks, Michael.
I appreciate that, my friend.
Have a good evening.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into our presentation for Technology and Innovation Program. So who I have next is Henrietta Jumo Apia, who's a Senior Vice President, Career Programs Lead there at Truist. So Henrietta, if you're ready.
Sure. Thank you very much for that. Well, can you all hear me correctly?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I would like to start by giving a little caveat that I have a little bit of a cough, so I might go on mute to cough so that you all don't hear it through, and also don't hear through the recording. So if I go on mute all of a sudden, just know that that's what's happening. Just want to set expectations, but I'm very excited to talk to you all today. My name is Henrietta Jumo-Apia, and I'm a career programs lead at Truist. I actually started my career in finance. And then I pivoted to HR. And so right now I sit in HR. I've done a couple of roles in HR, including learning and development, corporate social responsibility, diversity and equity and inclusion. And then I joined Truist in 2016 in their university recruiting space. So I did a lot of recruiting in the early career space for a number of years, and I did some of that at PwC as well. And then after that, after a couple of years, when I joined Truist, I think about a year and a half, I was tapped to lead one of our early career programs called Corporate Functions Development Program at the time. And so I did that until the merger. And then when the merger happened, and I think Mike alluded to this, one of the main reasons why we merged was technology. And so I was tapped to build a technology and innovation early career program. And so I was fortunate to design and create the technology and innovation program. And then in 2020, I was also tapped to create a senior leadership pipeline program called GRAD. And so currently my role is in two parts. I lead a team that manages our technology and innovation program from an early career side. And then I also lead a team that manages our senior leadership diversity pipeline program and an initiative called GRAD. So I'm very excited to focus specifically on the technology and innovation program with you guys today, you all. And so Will, if you want us to go to the next slide. And so wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about our program here, which we're really, really excited about. As Mike mentioned, the technology and innovation is really key to who we are. I was going to talk about the merger and the reason why we merged, and I know Mike touched on some of that. In fact, I'm currently sitting at the ITC, so if you can see behind me, you can see some cubes and some things going on over there. So I know Mike spent quite some time talking about the ITC, and I wanted to give you a little glimpse of what that is about. But one of the main reasons why we merged was because of technology, and so we wanted to create a program that really wrapped around technology and innovation. So as part of that, we have an internship program where folks come through and intern in different areas and spaces within our technology group. And then we have a full-time program, which is part of our leadership development program. A lot of our program is centered around something we call the 3 E's. So education, experience, and exposure. And so everything that we do in terms of programming is through this 3E lens. So how do we make sure that we're providing a good education for folks? So in terms of technical education, what are you learning? How can we provide the right tools for you? And then we have exposure. We expose our teammates who go through the program with our executive leadership team and our senior leadership team. And then experience is more about the collective experience, right? How do we make sure that we provide enrichment activities for you all, and how do we make sure that we have rotational programs? And so we really focus on the 3 E's when we talk about our technology and innovation program. We also make sure that from an experience standpoint, the folks that go through the rotational programs and the internship get to work on really cool hands-on projects. So think about things like building a chat box and our mobile app application. Like, how do we make sure that we're really involving our folks in hands-on, top-of-mind projects? So that's something that we also really focus on. In fact, I always brag about this, and I know that Mike was talking about his team sort of owning patents, but we actually had an intern last summer who did a project that we're currently working through getting it patented. And so I think it's really cool for an intern to come through and be able to do something like that. For the program, we really focus on folks that are, I would say, 0 to 3 years, and some capacity 5 years. That's what we consider early career at the bank. And so we focus on people that are in that space, but we also focus on folks that are external, right, to folks that are coming straight out of campus like you all. In addition to that, we also focus on our internal teammates. So our internal teammates that may be doing something else, but they want to pivot into technology, we really also tap into them for this program as well. So it's very exciting that we get to invest not only in our external teammates, but our internal teammates as well. And then once they're done with the program, they go into roles like designers, researching, engineers, Scrum Master, business consultants, program managers. So there's a variety of roles that they get to go into. So I'm looking forward to talking to you more about the technology and innovation program and sharing what that looks like. And so Mike, I'm sorry, Will, if you have any questions, we'll love to take them, but just wanted to spend some time talking about my background and then the technology and innovation program.
No, we really appreciate it. I know you have to run a little bit early. So what I like to do is invite our candidates, if you have questions for Henrietta about the full-time rotational opportunity or the summer internship opportunity, to drop those questions in the chat. And then Henrietta, if you like, you can field some of those questions in the chat until you have to head out. That sounds good. Then also,
yes, that sounds wonderful.
Okay, perfect. So to our candidates, if you have questions about the full-time rotational opportunities, the summer internship opportunities at Truist, Henrietta is going to keep an eye on the chat until she has to drop off. But we do have the link to the program that we will share at the end. It's one of our slides. We have sort of next steps, and we do have links to those programs. So definitely stay tuned for that. All right, so thanks, Henrietta, for sharing that
Thank you.
opportunity. Appreciate it. All right, so next we're going to talk to Steve about navigating the career landscape, technology, digital, and marketing. So let me introduce Steve Theriot, who's a Senior Vice President and Talent Acquisition Manager there at Truist. So Steve, if you're ready.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate the invite. I love events like this, mainly because I love to talk. And I've heard, especially from my family, that I don't like shut up. So this is one of those events where I think I can keep talking and hopefully no one's going to say that to me. So, but if I do, definitely let me know. I think Mike gave a fantastic background about like Truist. I love to tell the story. I think it's an easy story to tell. It's an easy story to sell. But a little bit about me first. Just like Mike, I am a Jersey guy. I'm from Verona, New Jersey, which is not too far from East Orange. I was born in Newark, and I lived there until I was 18. I moved down to Atlanta to study the computer science at Georgia Tech, with the whole plan of moving back up north, because at that time I felt I was a Northeast guy, and that's just where I belong. And 25 years later, I'm still down here. I met my wife down here. I had my kids down here. I love Atlanta. I don't miss the snow up north. So, I'm in a good place right now. But yeah, I have an interesting career. As I said, I was a CS major from Tech. The first half of my career, I was a consultant. I worked for Bain & Company. I worked for Arthur Anderson. I was a senior IT manager. I was a network architect for a few companies. And then I think I realized down the road that my passion is really people. I loved what I did from the IT side, but where I got the most enjoyment was being in a room with people and just talking about those things. I wasn't the guy you wanted to stick in the corner and just code. I could have done that, but I think you would have wasted a lot of my skills. And so I morphed into recruiting. I worked in recruiting agencies. That's how I got my foot in the door. And then I started my own firm, my own search firm that I ran for 5 years. I sold that to my partner and went back into agency for about 3 years after that. And then in 2014, I found SunTrust, joined them as a senior IT recruiter. And I was filling the job for the first 3 years of my career. And the last 5.5, I've been managing the team. So we have a team of about 30 recruiters that are spread across the country. And I think it's a fantastic story because as I said, I was from the SunTrust side. So when you think about it, 2019, you're merging these two huge regional banks. And Mike was right. When we first merged, we became the 6th largest bank in the country. I believe in the last year, we became the 7th. But still, I like to say, when I talk to candidates, I like to say we're a startup that just so happens to be the 7th largest bank, because we're building everything from scratch. You had to, once that merger happened, December 7th, 2019, you had to erase everything from the heritage companies. And at that point, you were building brand new. And I used to tell people, what a fantastic opportunity where you come in and you can plant your flag. I mean, seriously, we didn't have anything. We were building just policies as we went. We were learning as we went. The amount of times that I used to hear my first year. So is that on the SunTrust side, or do we follow the SunTrust system, or is that the BB&T system? We both were on 2 different networks. I couldn't access certain systems. I mean, let's just say it was chaos. It was good chaos, but it was chaos for 2 years because anytime you make the 6th largest bank in the nation, that's bound to happen. Now, you fast forward 3 years later, and a lot of that noise is now gone. We've now on President's Day weekend was the official weekend that we would sunset both of those names. And at this point in time, those names no longer like exist. In fact, in the company, we don't want to hear BB&T and we don't want to hear like SunTrust. They don't exist. We are Truist. We are purple. We bleed purple. So, and that's what we're building right now. You know, and that's the fun part. That's the like exciting part. That's the scary part. You know, you're coming in here and you're doing something that you want to like change the game. I manage IT. Right, like before this, I managed everything from the digital side, IT, HR, legal, and like marketing. My background is in IT, so that's where my focus is. And our CIO was one of the CTOs when I started. He was one of my hiring managers. So knowing Scott Case like the way that I do, seeing his vision being from there, and then seeing it how he's like running the company, it's a fantastic thing. And, you know, that's why people stay. At the end of the day, you know, Will, you asked like, what's the reason why you stay? And Mike gave a great answer. And I agree with Mike, because I do believe that this is a company that gives you the autonomy. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want a chance to do it on your own. I mean, you want the guidance, you want the help, but you want a chance to make your mark. And I think Mike was absolutely right. I think this company does a great job of like putting people in those spots. But at the end of the day, it's the people, you know, it's the culture. That's what makes people stay. You know, when I hire people for my team, I always say, listen, at the end of the day, the DNA is the same of the job. Recruiting is recruiting. It doesn't matter whether you're at Truist, whether you're at Walmart, whether you're at McDonald's, whether you're at like JP Morgan, recruiting is recruiting. You build a relationship, you figure out what they want, you build your sourcing like pipeline, you interview, you find candidates, you make a job, you know, you then make an offer. So when I sell people, I'm not selling you on the job. You can do that anywhere. I am like selling you on me. I'm selling you on us. I'm selling you on Truist. I'm selling you on the culture. That's why you'll stay. I tell my team all the time, your number one rule, if you get phone calls, you got to take them. Because like for me, I know what we've built, and I feel very like confident that unless if you were like presented with an offer that you could not like refuse, I feel very good about what we offer. But at the end of the day, and I think a lot of the Truist managers, they feel this way, and this is why I stay. At the end of the day, it is about you. It's about you. It's about your family. It's about what you need to live. And if it's not here, then we want to make sure that you get that somewhere. And a lot of my team will feel those phone calls, and it is funny. A lot of those people will let me know like about those phone calls. And I always used to say, when you evaluate jobs, everyone like talks about, you know, what you see, you know, your base salary, you know, your bonus target, you know, things like that. Well, you know, there's all these like components about your job that have invisible dollar signs around them. Your boss does. The culture does, your work-life balance. These are worth money. I mean, it's not just I make like $50,000 and like that's it. If my boss gives me the autonomy that Mike was saying, if I have the work-life balance, if I love my team, if they have my back, if these are the people that I want to go to war with every day, and if I'm making 50K like a year, you're probably not going to make, you know, sell me if you offer me 60. 65, because in me, I have to evaluate everything. And I want everyone, all the candidates that we field, I tell them, you have to sort of like figure out what your boss is worth, what your work-life balance is worth. And that's a dollar sign. And that could be worth another like $30,000. At the end of the day, each person has their own like number. But I think that's the one thing that like Truist does is those invisible dollar signs that are around those components. I think we're very good at making those very big. And that's why people stay. Both of like the heritage companies, when you look at their tenure, it's amazing. And that's the first thing that shocked me when I walked through the door. I used to ask people, so how long have you been here? And you're hearing, oh, I've been here for like 14 years, 19 years, 22 years. A woman that works on my team who's amazing. This is her 36th year with the company. There's a reason why she stays. I mean, you cannot like tell me that everyone on my team who are very high performers, they're getting fielded like opportunities and they're choosing to stay with Truist. And just for that alone, I'm very, very grateful, but that validates what we're doing here at the end of the day. We're the seventh largest bank and we are growing. I mean, last year alone, my team filled 1,162 IT roles. As of July 28th, 2022, as of this year, we have filled 1,259 roles. And we are growing. I have 550 IT like openings right now. So, I mean, what else are you going to ask for? And you know, here's another thing too that I like to tell people in the story. We merged in 2019. Nobody heard of that name like Truist. Then what happened in March of 2020? The world shut down. So we're building a brand. We're building the sixth largest bank in the country. We're trying to call people, we're a big Southeast regional bank. So that's who knew SunTrust and BB&T. As we're trying to, you know, make our national footprint more present, and we're reaching out to the West Coast, we have to build a brand where during a time where people weren't leaving jobs, where the market was very volatile, and you were calling people and you're saying, I want to talk to you about Truist. And a lot of times we would hear, who's that? And because we didn't have the opportunity to market in an environment where you could do that, you could fly people in for interviews. Nobody was doing that. So the fact that we are where we are right now, in spite of all that, I think is pretty fantastic. I think the future is very, very bright. Our digital and marketing space are two of our bigger spaces right now, just because of it's all the digital branding. What we're trying to do is to be more of that eccentric digital bank, is to see what the competitors are doing and making it more mainstream, easing it more optimal for the consumer. And that's the goal. And when we sell the jobs, that's what I'm selling. This is your time, to come in where you'll be noticed. And if you do good and if you're real confident, this is the time that you want to plant that flag, because the right people are going to see that. And when you're evaluated down the road and when you're looking at other roles that are a step up, people are not going to forget those big wins. And it's all going to come back into full circle. So I've done a lot of talking, like I warned you that I was going to do. So I will field any questions you guys have. I definitely want to make sure that everyone has a good idea of the company, of our hiring, and if I can give any more clarity to anything I said, I'm more than happy to.
Thank you, Steve. So Steve, to our candidates, if you have questions specifically for Steve, what I want to do is I want to circle back. Steve is the Senior Vice President of Talent and Talent Acquisition Manager, right? So if you have recruitment related questions, if you have questions about some of the points Steve made, just now as a part of his presentation, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. And then Steve, I'll ask if you've got time, if you can field some of those questions in the chat. And that way I'll introduce our panelists and then we'll come back for our panel discussion. Perfect. So to our candidates, if you got questions, thank you, Steve. All right, so to our candidates, if you have questions, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. And then Steve, if you can keep an eye on the chat for any of those questions you might be able to answer. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce our panelists. I've got three panelists I'd like to introduce, and then we'll go into our panel discussion. I'll take down my slides. But our first panelist is Deborah Bernard, Senior Vice President, Brand Digital Group Senior Manager. So Deborah, if you're ready.
Yes, well, hello, Deborah Bernard, and I am with our marketing department. I have been with Truist for 5 years, 2 of the years SunTrust, and the other 3 with Truist. I've had the opportunity to work for several Fortune 500 companies, which include General Motors, Harley Davidson, Truist, and SunTrust. I did my graduate work at Clark Atlanta University, and a little fact there, I actually was the last graduating class from Atlanta University. So they merged after I graduated in '89, and I'm a life member of Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Awesome, awesome. We got, I know we've got at least another person from Clark Atlanta University who's on my team, who's on the call with us. But let me ask just a couple of follow-up questions to kind of give some context to our candidates about who you are. Where are you from originally?
I am from Michigan.
And what was your path to Truist? So you mentioned that you worked at a few different companies.
Yes.
How did you get your foot in the door?
Yeah, so right after, it really was because of my experience. And so I worked for General Motors. I did all multifaceted, had multifaceted positions at General Motors. So I was there for 20 years. Then I went over to Harley Davidson I was there head of their global digital marketing department. And so therefore, I had 29 years of experience in the automotive industry. So interesting enough, coming over to SunTrust, they were willing, at the time, they were trying to restructure their digital department. And although I did not have any banking experience, but my experience in digital marketing got me in the door, and the rest is history. And so it's been a great opportunity from day one.
And then what does your team look like? And what are the types of folks that your team typically hires?
So I'm going to give you two different areas. My previous position, we typically hire what we call digital marketing managers. And these are teammates that have experience potentially like in paid search, SEO, email, direct mail, and social. So we deal more on the digital marketing channel side versus the actual solution technology side. In my new role, we hire more brand advertising managers, and social is actually part of the group that I'm with as well. We hire line of business marketing managers. So though in the brand department, it's really those who probably have more of truly a marketing background versus a technology background.
Awesome. And my favorite question, what is it that you like most about working at Truist?
What I love about Truist is the same thing I loved about when I came to SunTrust. I look for companies that are purpose-driven because that will tell you a lot about a company. But in addition to being purpose-driven, I actually love the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome, awesome. So Deborah, let me thank you for being one of our panelists. And let me ask this follow-up question, of course. As a senior leader with Truist, how have you been empowered and challenged to grow as a teammate and on your team?
Yeah, so a couple of things. From day one, not only with SunTrust, but also Truist, I have been empowered to restructure, train, and grow my team. I was given the opportunity, which I say is truly a once in a lifetime opportunity. I was responsible for our website strategy and execution for the Truist merger. So that was awesome. But again, I had the opportunity. No one was there telling me what to do. I actually developed the blueprint for our overall plan.
Awesome, awesome. So Deborah, let me thank you for being one of our panelists. I'll ask you to hold on for our live Q&A as well. Once I introduce the other panelists.
All right.
Thank you. All right, so next let me introduce April Jackson, who's the Vice President, Digital Discovery, Marketing Technology, and Digital Commerce Release Train Engineer. So April, if you're ready.
Yes, I am. Will, can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here tonight to hear from all of the attendees. So obviously, as Will introduced me, it was a mouthful. I know it is within the title. But let me give you a little background about myself. So I'm a little bit, I would call it unconventional how I ended up in technology. So of course, as you can see from the profile that's on the screen, I have about over 20 years of banking experience. So my majority of my career has been in banking. And believe it or not, 18 of those years have been with Truist. So this kind of goes back and resonates to some of the things that Mike talked about, Steve talked about, opportunities and autonomy. Deborah mentioned empowerment. So those are some of the things that really have kept me here at Truist. So I'm a double HBCU grad. So as everyone see, I got my undergraduate in accounting from Florida A&M University and my MBA from Clark Atlanta, and I got it in marketing. So how I ended up here at Truist was actually, I want to commend everyone for actually attending this event, because I will tell you that is how I actually got to SunTrust. I was actually very active in the National Black MBA and networking with folks with the National Black MBA, and they told me about an opportunity at SunTrust at that particular time. And it was a marketing position because I wanted to change and do something different, because I started my career crunching numbers at Bank of America, because I was in a finance management rotational program there. And after getting my MBA, I wanted to do marketing, and I ended up in banking again, doing marketing. And I will tell you, I did not think that I would be here 18 years later. I really thought, hey, this sounds like a great opportunity. I'm gonna, get back into banking, do a little bit of marketing, and then leave in probably about 4 to 5 years. Because if you kind of think about banking, marketing, it doesn't seem quite sexy. Obviously, some of the things that Deborah talked about, coming from the careers that she's had. So banking, marketing, you're like, I'm like, no, that's not probably really going to work for me in the long term. But it actually, when I got here at the company and the people, the culture, it has been overwhelmingly great. And I will say the one thing that's allowed me to stay is opportunities. I've done a gamut of things. I started off in marketing. I went into supporting our centers that actually do loans for our clients, so our business clients, our commercial clients, our private wealth clients. I did reporting, I did communications, I did training within those areas. I went into our business information office where I did requirements for our bank operations team, our commercial real estate team. Then from there, I went into strategy, working within our wholesale operations team, where I did, in other words, I like to call it where we restructured, looking at how our portfolio managers and the regions and the number of portfolio managers that we needed to have to support our regions. Then from there, I went into a technology project. I was still on the business side, supporting technology, where I managed a team where we imaged paper files. And so if you kind of think about your doctor's office and you walk in, you see all these paper files, that's literally like what our credit teams look like for our higher TVE clients that we had. We still had a lot of paper. So I led a project to image all of that paper, and that was right before the merger. So I couldn't think about trying to do that, in the midst of a merger and everything that's going on. And I was able to deliver that in 18 months. And so I wanted to kind of give you all that little bit of background to bring you to how I landed in technology. So as Steve talked about it, if you are given the opportunities and you actually deliver. So I will tell you at Truist, obviously with any other company, if you're able to deliver, then the opportunities are endless to you. And because I don't have a technology background, as you can all see, and I'm in technology right now. And that was because one of our senior leaders who I actually worked for, who actually is one of our executives now in technology, knew what I did and gave me the opportunity. So he took a chance on me and bringing me over into technology. And so I've been in technology right before the merger. So I moved over into tech in about 2018. And as a result of the merger, I'm a release trained engineer. And as being a release trained engineer, I manage Scrum Masters, and we support pretty much all of the marketing technology stack, or I have supported it in the past 2 years, That was voice of the client, email, offers, public websites, what Deborah talked about. I'm working with digital commerce, marketing data. I mean, you name it, the gamut within the marketing technology stack, I've supported those teams and working with those delivery managers to deliver to our clients. Because as Mike said at the beginning of the call, we as a bank, we are enabling businesses. So we're not, obviously creating widgets and, putting out widgets, we're enabling businesses. So that has been, obviously rewarding for me at the bank because of just the number of opportunities that I have had.
Excellent, excellent. So let me ask a follow-up question. And that question is, what have you
Oh.
enjoyed the most about your time with Truist?
So I will tell you, I've been able to move around to do different jobs. As one of my senior leaders used to say, getting bruised in a new spot is always good because it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you learning. So that's been probably the most enjoyable opportunity. The time I've had here at Truist is that I've been able to take on different challenges, and managers were willing to take a chance on me. So, and then obviously the people. So obviously I wouldn't still be here if it wasn't the people aspect, as you all have already heard, in the culture. So that has probably been the best time. Well, I would say that's what I've enjoyed most as being a Truist teammate.
Excellent, excellent. So April, let me thank you for being one of our panelists. I think it's awesome. We have, some HBCU grads as well that are going to serve on our panel. And to our candidates, I want you to start getting your questions ready. I'm going to introduce our next panelist. And then after that, I want to jump right into your questions. So get your questions ready. You can ask those questions in the chat, and then I'll start going through those questions in the chat to ask to our panelists. And then I have some questions prepared as well, just in case, but I want to prioritize the questions that you all have to maximize your time here at this event. So April, thank you for being one of our panelists, and I'll bring you right back after introducing Oliver. All right, so next panelist is Oliver Boris, who's Vice President, Digital Enablement and Quality Engineering, and a software engineer at Truist. So Oliver, if you are ready.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Super excited to be here with you guys. Thank you, Will, for the introduction. Don't have quite the background story as April or Deborah, but I'll give you a little bit about, how I joined Truist and the role that I'm working in now. So as Henrietta mentioned before, the Technology and Innovation Program found its way to Truist, and that is how I ended up here. Truist was recruiting at my HBCU, North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride. And at the time, I didn't have an idea what a Truist was. This was pretty early on in the merger. I was familiar with SunTrust and BB&T, but just the name Truist wasn't what caught my attention. I think the program itself, being somebody, close to graduation and not exactly sure like where my skill set aligned with the industry needs. I was very enticed by the program, getting the opportunity to work in different areas of technology within the bank before having to make any, final commitment or decision on what I wanted to do. So that was a really great experience with me. I rotated on 3 or 4 different teams within an 18-month period, and that gave me a level of experience. Henrietta mentioned the 3 E's: experience, exposure, and education, to kind of figure out the things that I enjoyed doing. Some of the things that maybe I thought I enjoyed doing, but not so much when, an actual practical application. So after completing the program, I joined the Digital Enablement and Quality Engineering team. And what we do primarily is we work with Truist digital applications to ensure that we are in line, or they're staying in line with Truist governance and security best practices. So we administer this through a number of different ways. We do compliance testing of our applications infrastructure as code. We do tagging resources to make sure that we are, staying at a certain allotment. Site reliability engineering, chaos engineering testing, a lot of different things to ensure that throughout the whole, not just maintaining quality code, but maintaining a clean quality technology development lifecycle process. So yeah, really excited to be here with you guys. If anybody has any questions about the Technology and Innovation Program, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or email, and I'd be happy to share more in depth about my experience with that. And yeah, thank you.
Let me ask the follow-up question we have here, which is, how has the Technology and Innovation Program prepared you for your career with Truist?
Well, that's a good question. I think just the amount of exposure, having the opportunity to work on 5 teams in, the span of just 2 years, I think I've been able to see a lot of different opportunities or a lot of things that come up and learn how to deal with them, how to handle them, how to be resourceful. Who are my resources I can connect with when I'm having an issue with a certain problem, knowing, where I can leverage those resources and work through a problem. I think, having those, just a diverse experience has kind of helped prepare me to be equipped with the tools I need to handle, any situation that's thrown my way.
Excellent. So I'm going to lead off. So we're going to go ahead and start our panel discussion, right? So I'm going to lead off my question to you, Oliver, because you said something that piqued my curiosity about the time frame in which you came into the company. So I saw 2020 on that slide. Did you start into the company?
Yep.
So what was it like to onboard into Truist in the pandemic, coming out of North Carolina A&T?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because when I had accepted the offer to join Truist, I was supposed to move to Atlanta, and that's where I would start, and then rotate to Charlotte, and then go to Raleigh after that. So I was preparing to, make these different moves, and then, due to the pandemic, that just never happened. I ended up, working remote the entire 18 months, but it was a really good experience because that allowed me to, network with people, and not just in one particular area, but people on the West Coast, people in Texas, North Carolina, DC, where I stay now. So just being, not putting myself in a particular box, but being able to, while we're taking advantage of this opportunity to be, remote, to be able to connect with people of not just directly in my space. I think that was one advantage to it. So yeah, I learned a lot from that.
Excellent. So my job as the moderator now is to ask questions from our candidates. So to our candidates, if you have questions for our panelists, please drop those questions in the chat. So we have April Jackson, Oliver, Boris, Deborah Bernard, and also Steve, who's going to field some of those questions that might be, recruitment related. So I'm going to jump to a question I see for April in the chat. It's from Ivy McLeod. So Ivy has a background in consumer packaged goods, also worked at Kimberly-Clark. Her question is, what insights would you share with someone seeking to leverage their marketing background and transition from an industry like CPG to technology? And so this question again is for April.
Yes. So one of the things, given that you have a marketing background, I call it the buzzword now, the new word is digital. And so Deborah probably can jump in here and help me with this one, but you can definitely use your marketing skills. I don't know if you, at Kimberly-Clark, obviously there's, definitely the digital presence, but definitely if you can try to use that, or maybe volunteer, or from a social media perspective with Kimberly-Clark, somewhere to kind of get you a little bit of an edge over in the technology side, because I will tell you that's helpful. And then too, you're at Kimberly-Clark. I mean, they have a technology organization, so depending on how long you've been there, if you know people, but maybe try to say, hey, jumping over there, or seeing what opportunities you have to maybe shadow someone over there within Kimberly-Clark. And Deborah, do you have anything that you wanted to add for that?
Yeah, sure. Especially on the digital marketing side, I recommend Google offers courses where you can get certified. There's probably about 6 different courses. And if you don't have the background, I recommend that you go through that process. There are also courses that you can take on LinkedIn and digital marketing. And the goal is that you have to know something about the space. And so that even though you don't have the experience, if you know enough and you've been certified, I think it will increase your chances or opportunities.
Awesome. Okay, so I see another question from David Motley Jr. And that question is, what opportunities exist for professionals in cybersecurity? So I'm going to default this one to Oliver or Steve, and your awareness of opportunities in cybersecurity there at Truist.
I mean, I was gonna say we have like a plethora of them. Like I don't have the list of the jobs right like in front of me, but I mean they range from cybersecurity analysts on all different levels to cybersecurity architects. We have cyber, you know, within the cloud. So I think it really breaks down to what exactly somebody wants to do or what they want to focus on or what area within cyber. And then obviously look at those opportunities there. I mean, we do have like a plethora of opportunities on the website, but it really just depends on what you're interested in. And then at the same time, what the role sort of like calls for the qualifications, you know, the years of experience, any like certification. So every role I would say is individual, and every manager has different needs of that role too.
But there are definitely cybersecurity opportunities there at Truist.
Plenty. I mean, it's one of those roles where I've had to tell our cyber leaders in the market right now, the unemployment rate in cyber is in the negative.
Wow.
Which means that when we look for those roles, I have to like convince people they're in a good spot. They have all the leverage in the world. And I've told my friends with kids who are, you know, trying to figure out right now, they have to start figuring out what they want to do, like in school, like in college. I'm like, if they can tolerate like cyber, it's a fantastic field. I mean, right now, you know, they can write their ticket. Like, I mean, obviously you have to show your skill in that, but if you can do that, you'll have these companies just, you know, and we are doing that right now. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of candidates that have multiple offers. And, you know, right now, guys, with this market and how like crazy it is, obviously, you know, I always put a grain of salt in some of this stuff because like some of the numbers that I'm seeing right now, some of the salaries in all fields are fairly, you know, I would, in my opinion, I think it will like correct itself at some time, but, you know, I don't know when that's going to be. It can be in 1 year, it can be like in 5 years. But if you're a cyber like pro that has his like stuff together or that has her like stuff together, there is no limit. So yeah.
Excellent.
And
I'm
we
saying,
would love to have you too.
excellent. Thanks, Steve. So I'm seeing a lot of questions from candidates about the types of opportunities that are available. So I'm going to bring up a slide after our panel discussion that has a link so that you can see the hundreds of jobs that are available at Truist. And from what I'm seeing, the questions I'm seeing for the types of jobs, the answer is yes. There's Scrum Master positions, and yes to some of the other positions that I'm seeing as well, UI positions as well. But I'm going to share that at the end. But let me try to bring home a relevant question for our HBCU grads, right? And this is one of my favorite questions to ask, at our events. And so this one will go to, April, Oliver, and Deborah, if you'd like to provide insight. And that is, do you feel that your experience having attended an HBCU has prepared you well for what you do now at Truist? So I'll default that one to April, and then Oliver and Deborah.
So I will probably be a little biased here. And so for any of my fellow rattlers out there, I was in the School of Business and Industry. So way back in the day with Dean Sybil Mobley. And I will tell you that, so I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, coming to college, I interned, I did like little office stuff, but to really prepare me for coming into corporate America, FAMU, SBI did a bang up job. I mean, we had forums, we had to dress the part, we had to have conversations. We had to read the Wall Street Journal. So I will tell you that going to FAMU really prepared me, honestly, for corporate America and being able to have those conversations and being able to network with people that don't look like us. I mean, we go to school with people that look like us. We go home to people that look like us, but being able to have the conversations and feeling very comfortable with being able to talk to someone that don't look like us about business topics.
Oliver or Deborah, would you like to add any insight on your HBCU experience and how that translates to your career now at Truist?
Yeah, I will say for sure. I went to Michigan State undergrad, so going to a HBCU was a totally different experience. And what I say that it gave me the confidence that I needed to start my career. So when I started my career at General Motors, and my foundation is what brought me to Truist today. So I would absolutely say the experience that I have received along the way, be it from General Motors or Harley Davidson, all of that experience is what got me to Truist today and my leadership. So I would say absolutely.
Excellent. Oliver?
Yeah, I'll just add on real quick. I think part of the reason that I chose an HBCU was because I didn't want to feel like, an outsider, or, I wanted to feel like I was able to learn in an environment alongside people that look like me, that have similar goals to I do. And, A&T being, a great engineering school, that was, one of the main things as well. But I never felt like, although we were an HBCU and predominantly African Americans, I never felt like I wasn't equipped, or we didn't learn, how to prepare for when that's not going to be the case in corporate America and outside of that environment. I thought A&T did a really good job of preparing us for how to be effective communicators, how to be leaders, and how to be, continuous learners in the real world. So I think, that contributed. That was one of the main takeaways I took from, joining HBCU.
Excellent, excellent. I had to take advantage of that opportunity because it's not every event that we have this type of representation. So I'll say kudos to Truist for putting together an awesome group of panelists. Next question I saw was related to work-life balance, and it was directed initially towards Deborah, but if anyone else would like to add to it. And the question was essentially, what is work-life balance like for you, and how do you manage that?
So good question. I'd say coming off a merger, I'm going to be really honest, there was no work-life balance because we're in the middle of a merger. However, since we've completed the merger, my work-life balance is there. But what I will say is that work-life balance doesn't just happen. You have to make it happen. You have to draw your lines. You have to decide, when you're going to cut things off, because as we all know, there will always be work there for you to do. So I think when you want the balance, it's really up to you as an individual to really establish that balance.
Anyone else that might want to chime in? Otherwise, I have a question for Steve.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, Deborah's absolutely right. I think we have a big part in defining our work-life balance, because as she said, the work doesn't stop. And we have to be able to balance that. And then that goes to the team you work in. I mean, I have 2 young kids, and they have a lot of activities. I have a lot of people on my team who they watch over their elderly parents for doctors, visits. We have people whose kids are, going through some serious illnesses. And the main thing that I always say as a leader, as a leader should invest the things that are most important in your life. And when they do, you'll invest in them. I've always said that if I'm telling you have to make your 9-year-old play a big priority, well then that I'm focusing on what's most important in your world. It's him. And if you know that, it's just a natural thing. You're just going to know, well, this person is investing in my family. That means more to me than anything on the planet. I think they have earned, what I'm, what I can give them. And I think it all works hand in hand. I think that the people are a big deal about that. So.
Awesome. Awesome. So let me throw another question out there. And, you know, for anyone that might want to add to this, I'm going to default it to Steve. But Steve, what advice can you offer candidates interviewing with Truist to maximize their chances of receiving an offer?
Be real. That's what I like to say. I sit in a lot of interviews all day, and I've been doing this for so long that you learn that when you hear certain answers, it's like, I think they're giving me that answer because they think I want to hear that. Or they think, and I always start out my interviews by saying, my first line is, I don't do interviews, I have my conversations. That's the best way that I'm not looking for an answer. I don't have an agenda. We will figure it out as we go. And then obviously, I mean, I have to analyze the answers that I'm saying, but I don't have a preset list of, if you don't tell me this answer, you're out of here. You know, I think aptitude is a big thing. Not everyone is going to walk in the door knowing everything. And if a manager is hoping that they find that, they're going to be searching for a very long time. Because I don't think that perfect person does exist. So I think on the manager side, we have to be more open to seeing what aptitude people have. But on the candidate side, go in and be honest. Be honest about what you know. Be honest about your passions. Be honest about what your goal is in the next 5 years. And then see if that leader is aligned with those goals. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if a leader is not aligned with those goals, that's nothing to do with, that's not a knock on you. That organization just may not be the one that is aligned with what's most important to you. But at the end of the day, what is going to get the candidates the furthest along is if you're honest about what you're applying to, and if you're realistic about what you're applying to. But as you're applying for that, be very honest about what you know, what you don't know, and what you're willing to do to get to the level that the manager wants to do. And more times than often, they are fairly open to that.
Excellent. So on that same note, we've got a few minutes left, and I want to leave some time to share this last slide and sort of the next steps. So what I like to do on the way out, following Steve's note there about landing the position at Truist, let's go April, Oliver, and Deborah. And my question is, what advice would you have to the candidates that we have here before us that are interested in opportunities with Truist? What advice would you offer them when considering or pursuing a career at Truist? April.
Wow. Okay. What advice? Obviously, being real is what Steve mentioned, but also know us. I mean, know the company, do your research, on Truist. I think that's very key. So that's probably, I would say, the number one thing for me is just know who we are.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Oliver, what advice would you give candidates pursuing a career at Truist?
I just say be authentic, be yourself. I think that was one of the things that I try to sell myself on. I'm not going to change or try to fit a certain mold. I come as I am, and I think people will appreciate you for that. So yeah, just be yourself and be honest, be open to learn, willing to make adjustments, sacrifices, changes in your life, to live the type of life you want to live or have the type of opportunity you want to have. So
awesome. And Deborah, any advice you'd like to offer to our candidates that may be interested in pursuing careers at Truist?
Yeah, I'm going to echo, learn as much about the company as you can and look for any networking opportunities, because we do have a lot of those. And so you can make connections that way. And then I just say, as you look for the areas of opportunities, just make sure the candidate, you bring that expertise to the table. And if it means going out and getting a little bit more, because certifications, you can get Agile certifications, you can get, like I said, Google certifications free of charge without even having to be part of a company. So just make sure you're doing everything you can to make yourself the best candidate.
Awesome, awesome. So let me be the first to thank you all for being panelists, for sharing your experience, for sharing your opportunities, and answering some of the questions that our candidates have. Now, what I like to do is just talk about next steps, because I'm sure all of you want to know, okay, now that you've learned more about Truist, you see what type of awesome people work at the company, and you're interested in the opportunities that we've been talking about, now's a chance to take action, all right? So I'm also going to send this out via email. There's 3 links here. One is for, of course, the top level opportunities at Truist, where you can pull up all of the current opportunities. The second is the Technology Innovation Full-Time Rotational Program and or Summer Internship Opportunities at Truist, which is the second link here on the screen. And then third, to join the Talent Network. So if you have a cell phone handy, you like to bring up that QR code on your camera, that should take you to the link that is also on the screen. But like I said, we'll send this out via email post-event. But I highly recommend that you join the Talent Network, because that is going to keep you in the loop of opportunities as they come up. And then you'll be identified as someone that is interested in careers at Truist. Now, the other thing that we're going to do proactively is we're going to share all of your resumes that you submitted to us on hbcuconnect.com. If you haven't submitted your resume for any reason, feel free to go to hbcuconnect.com/Truist and submit your resume. And then we're going to share all of those resumes with the team at Truist so that they can kind of go through the resumes and then reach out proactively to some of you that may be a fit for some of the harder to fill roles that they're sourcing for currently. But I would highly recommend that you are proactive as well, to seek opportunities, because just like Steve mentioned, there are a ton of opportunities right now that Truist is looking to fill, and the hiring appears to be fast and furious. All right, so hey, I want to thank everyone. Like I said, go ahead and feel free to take a screenshot, check out the QR code. But I also will be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to allow you all to turn on your video so that we can sort of encapsulate the moment and take a screenshot or two of your smiling faces. So if you'd like to go ahead and turn on your video feed and join the Truist folks, let us see who's out there. If you're prepared to do so, feel free to turn on your video now, and then we'll snap a couple of screenshots. So I always like to get a screenshot, because we used to do these events in person years ago, right? And
I'm still not able to unmute my video. It says still disabled.
I'm sorry. That's Daph. Who was that? All right, so I'm going to remove the spotlight so we can see everyone. Remove spotlight. Remove spotlight. Let me remove spotlight on myself. Go back to gallery. All right, so if you guys are ready, let's 1, 2, 3 say cheese. Let's get a couple of screenshots here. All right, awesome. All right, cheese. All right, you guys. Hey, again, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. Without you all joining us, this event would not be possible. Please do take advantage of the opportunities. Follow those links. Apply to those that are relevant to you. Got opportunities for folks that have lots of experience. We have opportunities for students, for internships, recent grads for the rotational programs. And of course, you want to stay in the loop, join the Talent Network, and share your resume as well with HBCU Connect. So I'll send these links out via email. But again, thank you all for joining us, and to Truist and the team at Truist, thank you all for making this possible as well, and presenting and sharing your opportunities with our audience. Looking forward to some good news. If folks land interviews, email me back and let me know so we can celebrate. All right. All right. Best of luck to you all, and appreciate you, and see you at the next one. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, Will.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.